Hey friends, it is your girl Kalia, and I'm here this week with another live episode in this wellness series all about how you can create really healthy routines. So this week, as promised, I am creating an amazing recipe, well two, one for dinner and one for breakfast with our superfood quinoa. So quinoa is so amazing and delicious. I probably have been eating quinoa probably ever since it got really popular, probably like 7 years ago, when everyone was like talking about quinoa, and it was like the go-to grain. And so I figured, since most of us, you go to like Whole Foods or you go to Trader Joe's and you see like quinoa salad, quinoa this, quinoa that, and you'll buy it, you might necessarily not know how to make it at home. And so I wanted to give you two really simple recipes. Once the quinoa is actually cooked, you really don't have to do much more for these recipes. And they actually taste really good once you let them marinate and let them like mull over and get all the spices and everything in there overnight. So I am really pumped about this. Also, if you haven't noticed, I have a wellness guide over here. This wellness guide is going to be so packed with information for you. You have both the recipes for what I'm making here tonight, and you also have a devotional for this week all about cultivating awe. So I wanted to do a devotional, and I start out with that. I wanted to do a devotional about how we can like really make our lives interesting. We can get out of a rut. We can really look at our lives and see the beauty all around us. And I think a lot of times, especially if we are super engaged with social media or we have a lot going on and our lives feel really fast paced, we forget to actually like take a moment, breathe, woosah, just come back to center and really see all of the beauty around us. And I know for me in my own personal life, when I begin to practice cultivating awe, cultivating wonder, cultivating that childlike joy, then I was able to have a more enjoyable life. Instead of driving down the turnpike every single day, the New Jersey Turnpike, shout out if that's where you're driving. Instead of driving down that with all the smoke and all the tractor trailers and all of this and all of that, instead of doing that, I actually began to look around and see like the grasslands and look at the horizon and start praying. And so I found little moments throughout like my everyday life to really start to cultivate awe, cultivate wonder. And so the focus verse of this week, the scripture, is Isaiah 40 verse 12, that talks about all the magnificent things that God can do. And I believe that once we understand like that epicness of God, like who has created the mountains and can move them, who has created the sky, who's created these beautiful oceans and nature all around us, and these simple things that we might take for granted, but they have so much complexity in them and so much wonder and awe. I believe that once we start to discover that in God and meditate on that and pray about it, I honestly believe that will transcend into other areas of our lives. And so we won't begin to just like take for granted those relationships that we have. We won't just take for granted the experiences that we have where we're just like, day to day, grinding it out, dealing with tough coworkers, dealing with tough relationships. We're not just in this kind of rut. And I said in this week's newsletter, like I've totally been in these crazy ruts in my life. I remember back in 2008, I talk about in the newsletter this week, just having this moment where it was like the middle of the summer. I'm working in this job in finance, which I absolutely hated. Like I could not stand. And not only could I not stand it, but I was failing at it because it was sales. And so my pay rate depended on my ability to sell, and I wasn't doing too good at it. And that meant I didn't have enough money to eat sometimes. My car was always on E. I just was having so many troubles like paying bills. It was just such a crazy time in my life. And I remember like sitting there and just like being in this moment. I'm in my hot car in the middle of the summer, can't turn on the air because that's going to burn up gas. And I was actually on the phone with my car loan company, begging them not to repossess my car. And also at that time, I was 60 pounds overweight. I was just really stuck. I was really in a rut. And I remember praying to God in that moment and being like, can you help me? And God answered that prayer. He was so faithful to answer that prayer. But the prayer didn't look like what most of us think answered prayers might look like. You know, it wasn't like a miracle overnight. It literally has been a progression every single year, getting better and better and better. And I started to understand very deeply that no matter what was going on outside of me, you know, whether it be a job, whether it be a difficult relationship, whether it be this, whether it be that, there's so many things that can like hit us over the head and like ruin our day. But the amazing, amazing thing about creating healthy routines and creating that relationship with God and just having that wherewithal within us is that we can really manage ourselves, in turn, manage how we react with our outside world. And so from that day on, I got really intentional about creating healthy routines when it came to my finances, because y'all, that was a hot mess. Okay. My finances, my relationships, my diet, because I was so stressed out, I continued to eat food that was really poor for me because I was looking to it for comfort. And I still battle now. Like, I'm not completely over some of these things. I've just progressed really far, and that's why I really want to teach it. You know, I battle with emotional eating all the time. I got a stressful email the other day, and like my number one reaction is to run to the fridge and go get something to eat because I know that's going to make me feel better. But I had to like be really cognizant of it. I was like, you know what, Clea, you're not hungry. You don't need to eat this. Save it for another time. And I have a cup of tea or I have some water, but it really started back in that time, me starting to understand like, hey, these were some negative patterns. These were some negative routines. Let me just try to change this. Let me try to do better. So this quinoa recipe for you is going to be awesome. So the first one I'm going to start out with actually is a savory one. It's really easy. This recipe, I tried to make it like a cup. So a cup of this, a cup of that. So it would be really, really easy. I'm going to make a little bit half of that recipe just because it's just me and I don't want to be eating this all weekend. So I started out with about a cup of quinoa. I am going to add in some amazing heirloom tomatoes. They're so good this time of year. And we're getting into summer. I'm so excited. Like, it has been a really long winter. So we're going to add in some cilantro, and cilantro and herbs are just going to be really, really good antioxidants. They're so delicious. Some cucumbers, very hydrating. So I'm putting that in the salad. And then one of my favorites, if you are a fan of Kalamata olives, this is for you. And so I love these Kalamata olives. They're so salty and delicious. So I can usually take a lot of this. So here is where it's going to be the fun, a little bit loud part. We're going to make a avocado mustard lime dressing. And so we have our avocado here. I'm going to take about half of it. Like I said, I'm not making too big of a serving. And let's try to get this seed out. Man, I wish I lived in a hot weather climate so I could get avocados every day because they are so good. Ripe every day at least. My sister actually started growing an avocado plant in her house. And it's getting tall, so it's pretty interesting. So you're going to take about half this avocado. And you have the skin right there. So in with the avocado, I'm going to squeeze the juice of some lime. It's kind of hard. I love lime juice though. It's really, really good. I'm going to do about, and a trick you can do is just try to keep your limes room temperature. Don't put them in the refrigerator so that they get cold and hard. And so we have the juice of about one lime there. Then you're going to take some white wine vinegar and pour a little bit of that in there. And then my favorite part, all of them are my favorite part because this recipe is so good. And you don't even really need that many spices because everything is like packed with flavor. So you're going to So we're going to take that. We are going to pulse it a bit, so forgive the sound. blender too. I'm using the food processor because it's a little bit easier to manipulate right now. And then I have like this super tricky food processor, so it's always a bit of a trick to like get the blade out. So be careful. This is live, friends, so I can't hide my weaknesses here. All right, so you're gonna take this avocado lime dressing, and it just smells so wonderful. It is so good. We're gonna mix this right on in with your quinoa. So delicious. All right, and we're gonna mix that right on in. Oh my God, friends, look at that. It's just so good, so creamy. And like, how quick was that? Like, you have dinner really in a matter of minutes, and something that is so good. Like I said, quinoa is a complete protein. And so you have your protein, you have your healthy fats with the avocado, you have lots of fiber with the tomato and the cucumber, and you have even, like I said, the high antioxidants and the cilantro. It's just such a good, like, hearty meal. So I'm going to try this for you. Let's see how it tastes. Wow. It's really good. I feel like the mustard really sets it off. Oh my goodness. So you have to try that. Like I said, if you want the printed out version of that, make sure you head on over to the link that I provided in the description of this video. So now that we made the savory one, we are going to go right on over to the sweet. And like I said, this is really good because you're able to like make 2 meals in one. So you have your dinner or your lunch, and now you have your breakfast. And so quinoa is excellent for breakfast. Like I mentioned, it is very high in protein, so you get your protein. We're going to add some more protein with these sunflower seeds. It is really, 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 really good. And so you take your quinoa. You're going to add some strawberries to this. Just so good. I have some blackberries and blueberries, which is really, really delicious. So amazing. And then I have some sunflower seeds. And because we're not adding Kalamata olives, I do have a little Celtic sea salt so that you can just sprinkle some in there with it over your shoulder, right? And then I have some raw honey. So you're going to add this in for a bit more flavor. Woo. It's about a tablespoon. A little bit more. We're getting really fun with it. All right. And so we're just going to mix that up. And it's so good. You have all these fresh berries in it. It's berry on time because it's summer and the berries are really nice right now. Well, it's going to be summer. But you see a lot of deals right now on berries. They're so good. So let's give this a try. Here's the finished product. Wow. It's really, really good. Actually feels like I'm eating cereal. It's so good. So amazing. So that is this week's recipes. And again, for more of a devotional, make sure you download that wellness guide. Let me know too on this videos if you're watching it after you've seen it live. Let me know what your questions are. What are some ways that you actually incorporate quinoa, and share it with someone who really has a lot of trouble with healthy foods and thinks they can't taste good. Healthy foods can taste amazing, and we didn't even really use that many spices here today. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I cannot wait to see you next week. Take care, friend.